That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Columbia, this is... This is Houston, AOS, over.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the TKW podcast. I'm Anthony Corbo, your host, as always. You can follow me at Corbo Anthony on Twitter. I'm joined by my fabulous co-host as well, Kyle Maggio.
What's going on, everybody?
At Kyle Maggio on Twitter, and Bryan Gibberman.
What's up, everyone?
At Bryan Gibberman on Twitter. And while you're at it, make sure you're following the Knicks Wall, TKW podcast. Just spell them out. They're there for you. If you're listening to this on YouTube, shouts to you guys. Keep it up in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to us. Head over to your favorite podcast app. 5 stars. Please leave us a review. Let us know what we could be doing better. Let us know what we're doing well. We love hearing from y'all. And so we're here. Things have kind of quieted down a little bit more since the Kristaps Porzingis trade went down. I'm actually going to start calling that the Dennis Smith Jr. trade. Fuck that. Since the Dennis Smith Jr. trade went down, it kind of gives us a good place to evaluate not just how Dennis Smith Jr. has looked since he got here, but the rest of the young players, the rookies, the second-year players, the draft picks, and the additional pieces the Knicks have left in their chest of assets, and also could be contributors long term for the team. It's been an interesting calendar year for them so far, especially Kevin Knox has seen his share of up and down in January and February. We haven't seen Frank Ntilikina in a little bit. There's Noah Vonleh still on the roster, so I'd say we got some answers from the trade deadline, but a lot more questions have popped up. Bryan, why don't you get us started here? What's your biggest thing to talk about tonight from how the young players have looked so far this calendar year?
The guy I want to talk about is Kevin Knox, and I tweeted something out during the Raptors game that I thought was very, 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 very innocent. So the tweet was, Knox had 2 pretty nifty passes too. It's going to be really fascinating to see if he can ever pull it all together, or if it ends up being a pick the Knicks regret. And the reaction I got to that tweet was a lot of, he's 19, how are you giving up on him, blah, 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 and along those lines. And even if the Knox picks bust, I'm not going to criticize them for it. It was a worthy shot at a high upside pick. But that people can't, I don't understand why people can't acknowledge that there's risk in the pick and there's also a high reward. Because if you look at, there's 2 guys the Knicks passed on for that pick, Michael and Miles Bridges. And those guys right now, and look, Michael's 23 and Miles is 20, but they're both significantly better players than what Kevin Knox is. Kevin Knox cannot make a layup. The Raptors game, for instance, he was 1 for 4 in the restricted area, 2 for 7 in the non-restricted area, but in the paint. The only thing he can do is make threes. He's shooting on 2-pointers this year. Kevin Knox is shooting 38%. Michael and Miles Bridges are both right around 54%. Now, there's good from Kevin Knox. He's getting to the free throw line at a higher rate than those guys. He's shooting 34% on a higher volume of 3 than either of those 2 are taking. Those are very good signs in what the player can become. But he has a long way to go. He's a 19-year-old kid, and he's very raw. His handle is rudimentary. His finishing is rudimentary. He might be he's one of the worst defenders in the entire NBA. And a big reason the Knicks are 10-44 this season is because he's playing 28 minutes a game and he's played 1,300 minutes. He's awful right now. There's no way around it. He's scoring a decent amount of points, but that's because he's taking a ton of shots. So I don't understand why there's controversy around saying Kevin Knox is very bad right now. There's risk in Kevin Knox. There's also part of his game that translates awesomely to the modern NBA, and it could work out tremendously. I don't see what's controversial in all that.
Well, this is what happened when I started turning on Frank a little bit. I was just like, yeah, like the mold of Frank and the player that we want him to be and think he could be, that's of course that's a tremendous player. Of course you want like a 6'8", lengthy, elite defending, small forward who has playmaking abilities, who could hopefully shoot some threes. Like, of course you want that. But right now, Frank kind of sucks. Like, and that's fine. He's a young player, but like, this is the same thing I was saying in Slack. He stinks right now. It just is what it is, and he helps the team, I think, which it's a lower bar because this team is terrible. But he does help them play winning ball when he's in. But he's just not actually good himself yet. So, but it's not like an indictment of the players when we say it. Is my point. It's not like I think he's just bad because he's bad. I just think he's bad because he's young and he's got to keep learning and getting better. The context is important, but it's not supposed to be an indictment against them either. So I think people take that as like a criticism. Like, I know we did that over the summer when we mentioned Alonzo Trier's tunnel vision in Summer League, and people thought we hated him for some reason. And we're like, no, he just, he has tunnel vision. He just, that's what's happening. We don't hate him. We're not calling him anything.
Like, two things on that too. One on Knox is it's really interesting to me how, he's such an offensive player, and you could tell they're really trying to give him a role in the offense to get him going, because he has just fallen off the cliff, like you're saying, since he got those, the Rookie of the Month honors in there. But it's just really interesting how when his shot is falling, like, it seems like the whole offense comes together. Like, the team plays faster, guys are running more, it seems like guys are getting more into position. And then, like, when Knox is just not hitting a shot, or he's not looking confident out there, he doesn't know where to be on the court, it really slams everything up, because especially now when you have the starting lineup of Dennis Smith Jr. in there, you take away Tim Hardaway Jr., you have a lot less off-ball scoring that's going to be get the offense running, and I think that's what they miss the most when Kevin Knox isn't performing. Other thing real quick, and we can still talk about Knox a little bit more, but I thought Trier and Dennis Smith Jr. have played well together. I thought Trier has been spacing the floor well when Dennis Smith is out there and kind of letting DSJ take up the inside a little bit. But as far as the Knox is concerned, like, his offense needs to be there for him to be effective, and like you're saying, he's just not right now. And but it's okay. It's not like the Knicks are going to win more than 20 games this season, so. I'd say for the rest of the year, with anybody, let him work out the kinks. Like, you were saying this with Frank too. Like, there's no reason why he's not going to be playing, nearly 30 minutes a game. It's just, we have the rest of the season to work it out with these guys, and they need to make strides. Like, if we go into the summer with the same questions about Knox and Frank, there's going to be some issues. We need to see a little bit more consistency now that they have clear, defined playing time.
And I talked about the bad from the Raptors game, but there was also good. There was the three-point shooting early in the first quarter, in the first half, in his first stint. For some reason, he played like the first 15, 16, 17 minutes of the game without sitting. I don't know what Fizdale was doing there, but that was strange. But he had a stretch where he had two good individual defensive plays, one on Siakam and one on, I want to say Kawhi, but I'm not 100% sure, where he stayed in front of both of them, contested their shots, and stopped them from scoring. And then he stayed with the man cutting back door and had a deflection. That's good signs. And that's stuff he has to build upon and keep doing, because his team defense is truly horrific. Like, those were isolated instances of good that you could see the potential of where he can eventually go. But he's just not doing it consistently right now. And that's to be expected. He's a kid. He just started playing basketball really full time when he was 16. He has to learn. He's learning how to play and in doing it at the highest level that you possibly could be. This is really hard. And I like how Fizdale is handling that. He's just throwing him out there, letting him play and letting him learn. But I mean, he's shooting 50% in the restricted area, 38% in the paint non-restricted, 24% from mid-range. Like that, I don't think it's to be expected with where he is and what his skills are. It's a lot of stuff we deal with Frank, and this is when I get frustrated with Kyle. With Frank, it's a lot of the same thing with Knox. Like, you have to accept that this is going to be a drawn out process. Like, even next year, there's no guarantee that all of this is going to come together. It's going to be 2-3 years down the line possibly before we really see him kind of mold himself and put together the skills that he needs to be an effective winning basketball player and not just do some individual stuff that equals raw stats.
So let's we're talking a lot about Frank, we're talking a lot about Knox here. Let's kind of take a look at some of the other young players and how they've been since the beginning of the season. Maybe we turn our attention to Alonzo Trier here. He had a significant period of struggle after he came back from his he had an ankle injury, right? But yeah, yes. After he came back from his injury, it seems like he's really rounded into form lately. And I mentioned this before, but I like the way that he's played so far with Dennis Smith Jr. I haven't seen quite the same offense out of Dotson that we've seen at other points. I'm waiting for them to really get a thing together. But when Trier subs into the game for Dotson, I'm seeing a little bit more activity, a little bit more, consistency with the ball spacing. Maybe it was just a Toronto game, but I'm liking what those two are bringing to the table as a pairing. Yeah.
I still think Trier's been the best rookie as a whole, and I think we could all agree on that, right? Like,
no.
You think? I really, and I know what you're going to say about Mitchell Robinson. I just think Trier being able to play every game, big minutes, is a skill.
It's not far. Everybody has a unique set of struggles that they're dealing with right now, but I wouldn't say that any one of them are necessarily super far off. I would say, I guess, Trier and Robinson are pretty close as far as production is concerned in my eyes. But
I feel the same way, that it's close. I'm not trying to say it's like head and shoulders above.
I just think Max, I just think players.
Trier's been like more balanced on both sides of the ball, and especially more consistent.
Sometimes being well-rounded doesn't necessarily mean better. And the Knicks, and considering what this team is, the fact they've basically played elite defense whenever Mitchell Robinson has been on the floor this year, puts him head and shoulders above any other of the rookies or any other of the young players in general.
Well, that's a fair point.
Well, all right. So what do we see as, I guess, looking at Mitchell Robinson too, Alonzo Trier doesn't have the mentor that Robinson has now with DeAndre Jordan. And I don't know how, obviously these guys have only been here for a couple of games, but I don't know how much of this is going to be overblown with the whole mentorship thing. I don't know how much of DeAndre Jordan being around is for him to contribute in a more long-term fashion, or, just to get him here to lure Kevin Durant to the team. But, Mitchell Robinson could definitely use someone to show him the ropes, and especially on the rebound again. Like, where do you think that DeAndre Jordan is going to help Mitchell Robinson improve the most, or do you think that's not really, that's a non-factor at this point?
I don't think the veteran presence and a guy teaching you, there's some value in that. That's also why you have a coaching staff. There's part of me that think that stuff is overblown to an extent, that he does need someone to help him, but that's a discredit to Mitchell Robinson, and Mitchell Robinson deserves credit for how he's improved since in February, the last 4 games. We've been complaining about his defensive rebounding all season. He's up to 18.3. His defensive rebound percentage is up to 18.3, and his offensive rebound percentage is still 15.6. I mean, the last 4 games or so, he's been absolutely fantastic. And to just give all the credit to that, to DeAndre Jordan, is insane to me. And you read the Berman piece about DeAndre Jordan, and it's crazy. Like, the dude is stunk, and we'll get more into this later. But, like, DeAndre Jordan's bad, and Mitchell Robinson's been good. And the stark contrast between the two of them when they're on the court it's yikes. It's not a good look.
I think he's definitely knowledgeable enough. I don't think he's a particularly good defender right now. I don't know if it's due to a lack of effort or if he doesn't really care to be that same player that he was, despite him not really being, but he's only 30 years old. He still has plenty of good years left, so I don't understand what happened here. But, I still think the whole mentor thing is a perfectly fine and reasonable aspect to this. He definitely at least does have the knowledge. He was a former defensive player. Did he win one defensive player of the year? Or was he just an all NBA defense guy?
No idea.
He does. He does have it. He may have 2.
Okay. So, I mean, he was a good defender for a long period of time, is my point. So he does have some knowledge. I do see the benefit to it, and it's something, we hope Mitch becomes, is kind of what he was in his prime a little bit. So I get it from that angle.
So I just want to group these last couple of guys into the same category. We could just talk quickly about a little bit of differences between the 3. But the other young players, I would say, on this team that I'm wondering more about is Emmanuel Mudiay, Noah Vonleh, and Mario Hezonja. All of these guys are pending free agents for the Knicks this summer. What do you think the Knicks do with them? Are they simply here just to run their contract out, and then there's going to be a pretty significant parting of ways, or do you think that the Knicks have any intent on bringing any one of these guys back into the fold, and can they contribute once they're back?
I think just Vonleh probably. I don't know why they'd want to bring any one of these guys back.
Hezonja's kind of had like a decent last 2 or 3 weeks, I would say. He's still making all these bonehead mistakes that he always makes out there, but for the most part, he's had some nice. He's been decent on both the passing end. He's made some shots, missed some shots, and I think it's trending more in the missed some shots area. But his passing and his rebounding, I've noticed, have been a little bit better in the last few weeks. I don't know if that's enough. That's enough to get him some minutes. He's obviously started last game, but I wonder, if they see any value in that.
I'm with you that he's played better, but there's just something about his game. And I haven't looked up the numbers because I just don't think he's going to be back. So I don't really invest much time in analyzing him. But eye test watching him, there's just something about him that's a little bit off, that he just doesn't, I don't feel like he fits into the flow of the game easily. And that's partially his decision making. He hesitates. I feel like he hesitates when he should attack. Sometimes he attacks when he shouldn't.
Yes.
And there's just something that's a little bit off about him that I feel hurts the team as a whole when he's involved too much.
He just seems a little frantic, is the way I would describe it. He always seems like whenever he needs to do something, there always just seems that little second of hesitation is just very. I don't know if it's nervous or not. I don't know how to describe it, but to me, it's very frantic in his decision making sometimes.
Sometimes people there's how basketball players process information in their minds greatly impacts how they play, and he seems to be one of those players where how they process the information is just a little bit off, and that kind of throws everything off a tick.
So, quick correction here. DeAndre Jordan's never won Defensive Player of the Year. I thought he did. He's won the NBA Players Award, Best Defender thing. But why don't we move on from some of the players that we have right now, and let's talk about some of the most recent interactions. We're obviously getting to a point in the season where we're focusing on free agency. We're focusing on the draft. We have Mike Cortez from the Knicks Wall coming on later on in the show to talk about his upcoming draft board piece. But we're also kind of curious about what's going on in free agency, and a lot of that you can start to parse out some details now. So it's a little segment we're calling Tea Leaves here, and the first little bit of tea that we want to sip on here, the first leaf that we want to read is comes from Zach Lowe and Bobby Marks on his podcast, on the Zach Lowe podcast, talking about Kevin Durant at the very end of the episode.
What they were talking about, it was weird. So they were talking about which fan base is the most angry at their team. And that sort of transitions into what Zach says.
You know who's going to skyrocket up these rankings if July doesn't go right? Knicks fans.
Yes.
If July goes wrong,
yeah,
the protests are going to start again.
Yeah.
Literal protests in the street.
And it could go wrong.
We'll see.
Could.
We'll see.
Yeah, so in that very Zach Lowe cadence that he delivered so perfectly, we'll see is the answer. Said very assuringly, and the same way both times around, and that just gets all of us on Twitter, all of us on this podcast, all of us in Knicks fandom speculating real hardcore. Brian, is Zach Lowe telling us all that Kevin Durant to the Knicks is a done deal?
I'm not crazy there, right? Like the way I heard
it's the
that,
same tone.
Yeah, but like Bobby Marks was like trying to be like, yeah, it might not happen, and Zach Lowe was basically just like, nah, it's gonna happen.
It's a long
like,
pause in there.
Like he's just like, yeah, we'll see. And the way it was just like the tone he said it, and I did his tone terribly right there. That's not how he said it. But
well, Kyle, is it a done deal?
All right. Can you give me like a 5-second dramatic pause?
We'll see.
I think I was wrong to be angry about the trade. So it hit me. It hit me the day the Mark Stein article dropped, where he mentioned that these league insiders all seem to think Durant is going to the Knicks, and I was like, okay, that's just one guy. It's one big guy who's usually pretty credible and a big deal. So okay, that's good. And then whatever, right? I was like, all right, not a big deal. And then later that day, I think Ethan Strauss had his first one since the one that set Durant off, and he said the same thing. All these the NBA thinks he's going to the Knicks. And I was like, okay, Ethan's always been very, very credible. Okay, now that's two big ones, and that's one right in his, for he's a beat reporter for the, that covers that team. So I was like, okay. So now I started getting a little bit excited, and then the Lowe thing happened, and then I was like, oh my god, so it just seems sort of irrefutable. Like, why would all the guys who are often credible and in the know, this is very like LeBron to the Lakers vibes, is my point. And it doesn't make sense. I don't know that it has to make sense if he comes, but it just, that's the sense that I get. And the other thing that I noticed too is that Berman article that dropped about why Giannis was mad with the Knicks front office. He wanted like a front office position, like he wanted to be like incorporated basically, and they didn't want him to. So I wonder if maybe it rubbed him the wrong way because they might be planning to give Kevin Durant's agent a gig, and maybe they didn't like that. Is that a good connection?
That's reading some tea leaves, so I'll give it to you.
Do you remember? So Zach Lowe does his article before the season, like 30 things, I believe it is. Do you remember what his number one was in that article?
No.
Tell me.
Kevin Durant is going to sign with the Knicks after the season. That was the number. That was what led the article. He didn't add anything else to it, but the article started and it was just number one. Kevin Durant is going to sign with the Knicks. That was from before the season even started. And then he went on and got into a whole bunch of other different stuff. There's so much noise behind this. Like Lowe has, to me, Lowe is very clearly that he wrote that before the season, how he talks about them, and then that little we'll see thing. It feels like Lowe's been told that he's going to go to the Knicks. And much like you brought up the LeBron thing, Kyle, the entire league knew it, and they didn't really, like, they hinted at it, but they didn't say anything. Like, Windhorst was like, what? He did the podcast, the free agency podcast, and he was like, what? Like 60, 70%, I think LeBron's going to go to the Lakers. And then after it happened, he was like, yeah, I 100% knew. I just couldn't come out and say that.
Yeah. So I guess I don't want to belabor it, but I don't know. I just don't know. Like, what percentage do you think? Like, how confident are you?
I'm above 50%. And I never let myself get that optimistic about this team, but I'm firmly above 50% here.
Yeah, I'm at like 75, 80%.
Wow, that is high.
I thought I was going to say a strong 35%. I thought that was high, but You guys just blasted it.
I mean, if you're reading the comment, you're the one throwing conspiracies out here. You're only going to give me a 35. Like you just
I wonder if there's like stipulations to it. I thought about this too. Like, I wonder if Durant's like, hey, I'm 100% coming if you get me Kyrie, and then if you can't get me Kyrie, you have to trade for like Anthony Davis or Bradley Beal. Like, I wonder if there's stipulations. Like,
you
have to have something lined up, or I'm not just gonna fucking come and play next to Kevin Knox. Like, I'm gonna come and you can get me somebody else to run with, and then we'll figure out the rest. Like, I wonder if like that's part of it.
First of all, that's exactly how he said it too. I'm not just gonna fucking come to play with Kevin Knox. That's exactly how he said it, and it's like I wouldn't like if on June 30th, Kevin Durant is all set up to sign with the Knicks and everything is good to go. And then July 1st, the paperwork comes and he just says, nah, fuck it. I wouldn't put that past Kevin Durant either. That's totally within his realm of possibilities, And then his realm of, what's right to do. He can do whatever he wants in the future. And if he wants to back out at the last second, he absolutely can. I mean, look at what happened with freaking DeAndre Jordan and all that years ago. But, I'm sitting here above 50%, but I just based on, I don't mean to like slander his name, but just based on how volatile Kevin Durant can be with his decision making sometimes, I would not go above like 65% sure, even if like it's basically a done deal.
All right, on the help issue, more tea leaves.
Yes, let's get into this.
The Kyrie thing, it's just like, oh, things are happening.
Oh, that was delicious. I was
scrumptious.
I'm never up at that hour, and that was just amazing. The things that were coming out during after
I'm
that
drinking
game.
A cup of tea right now just for this moment. Like I'm oh man.
Hearing Morris whine about it, we're not having fun. We haven't had fun in a long time. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, Kyrie threw the kids under the bus. It's tremendous. Hayward just looks like a bum through no fault of his own. He's just not healthy. But they look awful. They look awful. I mean, they're actually a good team, but they look awful in the context that they should be better. They were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. You thought reinforcements were coming. Kyrie would be healthy, and you couldn't have scripted it better. I don't think if you're in our position at 10-45 and you're hoping for something to happen to force them out. I think this is about as good as it can get.
Do we want to do it? Do we want to play the clip? Should we let everyone in on this? Do we all want to have a moment to rejoice together in what Marcus Morris said about his teammates?
Yes, absolutely. I want to hear it.
Let's do it.
To me, it's not really about the losses, but the attitudes that we're playing with. Guys are, hanging their heads. It's not fun, man. Like, it's not fun. We're not competing at a high level. Even though we're winning, it's still not. It's just not fun. I don't see the joy in the game. I watch all these other teams around the league, guys up on the bench, they jumping on the court, they doing all, other stuff that just look like they're enjoying, their teammates' success, they're enjoying everything, and they're playing together, and they're playing to win. And when I look at us, I just see a bunch of individuals.
What has to change?
The goal has to be to win. Bottom line, we got to play to win. That's sacrificing playing hard, that's sacrificing, being a better teammate, that's sacrificing whatever it is, we have to put it to the side. No one's getting traded, trade deadline's over. We're competing for a championship, and that's how we got to approach these games. We're going to lose or draw, man. We're going to lose games, but we don't have no attitude, we don't have no toughness, we ain't having fun. It's going to be a long season.
We don't have no attitude, we don't have no toughness. We ain't having fun. It's going to be a long season. I mean, I feel like just a couple of months ago, maybe even weeks ago, Marcus Morris is out here being hailed as the Boston's big veteran presence, and he's a glue that's holding the locker room together. And then it's going to be a long season. We ain't having fun. This is what I need to hear. Oh, this is what I need to hear.
I disconnected from internet and everything after the Knicks game on Saturday, And then I logged on. It had to be like 2 a.m. or something like that. And I just see all this Celtics stuff. And I see they blew the lead. And I see that quote. And I'm just like, holy hell. Hadn't they won like 9 of 10 going into that game before they lost the 2 straight to the Lakers or something like that? Like, how is this all coming apart at this? Like, something is going on there that it's not right. It's like they haven't played up to expectations, but they're still a very good basketball team that's been playing at a very high level for like a couple months now. But there's so much noise coming out of there and so much negativity. Something's up, and I just want to eat it, all of it. Just inject it all into me at the same time. It's the best. Like Kyle, you said it. The Knicks are 10-45 or 10-44, whatever the hell it is, and we're sitting here laughing and having fun at the expense of a team that everyone assumes is going to make the second round of the NBA playoffs and has a chance to make the NBA Finals. It's all very, very strange.
It truly is. And I have one more tea leaf thing. Did you guys see the season ticket advertisement from this morning?
Maybe the funniest thing.
Oh man, that is what a move.
Because the Knicks just released a statement on it, and I just retweeted. I saw Stephen Bondi. The Knicks statement on including KD's photos in a season ticket promotion. Game action photos are used all the time for marketing purposes, but given everything, this is what got me.
Top it out.
Wait, is this an time out?
What?
Wait, is this an official release from the Knicks?
Well, normally I get those, and I haven't checked my email. Hold on. This is irresponsible of me. Nope, we didn't get this one. Normally we get them for the other press releases, though. And
so what account are you reading this off of?
No, okay, so I'm
this is off Stephen Bondi.
This is from Stephen Bondi. Okay, I'll take it.
Game action photos. This is from he said Nick's statement on it. So
cool.
Game action photos are used all the time for marketing purposes. This is the best part. But given everything going on, we took precaution of taking the photo down. To be clear, it was one of several rotating photos on the website. But what gets me is the subtle acknowledgement of, but given
with
everything
all that's going on. Is that really? Wait, that's exactly with all that's going on. That's a quote.
But given everything given everything going on.
Oh, that is a lazy Sunday press release if I've ever heard one. Oh man, that's funny. That is like the least cop out I've ever heard.
I'm just holding. I want to tweet that from the TKW account in quotes. But given everything going on,
yeah. Does that improve anybody's percentage of Durant arriving at the Knicks? Brian's already at a steady 75. I don't know how much further up he can go from there. Kyle, you were at a 35. Where does that move you now?
I'm going to stay where I'm at. I don't want to get too excited. Things don't happen to us, and it seems different this time. It's like Brian keeps saying, it's weird. That's the word for it. It's weird.
It's just hanging over everything.
Like, the KP trade was weird. The fact that they got so much back, and normally the Knicks fuck it up, it was weird. Like, the timing of it being so, rapid, basically, in KP's career here seemed weird. Like, it's everything about this that's happening is just very strange, and I hope for once it works out. I just don't want to get my hopes up.
I love that you are supremely confident that the Knicks are getting KD, but you refuse to admit it and are just going to continue to say 30%, even though deep down your percentage is much higher.
I'm at 55 now. This moved me up 5%.
It would be really nice to be able to root for a good, again, it gets, people think it's funny, but I really do look back fondly on that 2012-13 season. Just being able to see Melo ball out in his peak form, having a talent on your team. He wasn't perfect, and KD's obviously a superior player, but that, just having that for even a season is just such a nice feeling. I just want to be able to root and see good basketball like that again. At
what point this summer do you think the Golden State Warriors file tampering charges against the Knicks?
Frank Isola tweeted basically that the Warriors must have put in a call to the front office, to the NBA front office.
So I myself have some KD tweets I would have to go back and delete, but all the people who, when Melo was on the Knicks and would call him a better pure scorer than KD, are gonna have to. Those will be. I'm gonna bring up some of those.
You will spend. I can see you spending a 12-hour period just going through various prominent Knicks Twitter accounts and just pulling people down, just pulling out tweets from 2010, 2011, 2012, all the way through probably 14. You're going to make it. You're going to go 4 years deep here of just out these people out and turn them into KD apologists.
I don't have to do that. They get sent to me.
I looked up the ones that I tweeted about Durant, and I sent some to the Slack chat a couple of weeks ago, and boy, do I have a lot of tweets to delete. I sent like 3 screenshots that contain like 6 to 7 tweets on each screen, and yeah, it's just, I might just do one of those wipes from like anything from like 2016 and prior. I'm just gonna wipe, and then I'll individually.
Kevin Durant is gonna make you wipe. What do you? When did you get onto Twitter? Are you 2009, 2011? When do you think you got on?
2009, I think. I think it was 2009.
Kevin Durant is going to make you wipe 7 years of tweets. That's unbelievable.
Honestly, the first 5 years of tweets, I didn't do much. I just kind of laid low. I said this before. I used to tweet when Brian was a more supreme voice in the early Knicks Twitter. I used to tweet his little gang, and everybody just ignored me in my little minuscule account with no followers. And then we rose to the top, and that's what we did. We rose to the top.
Turn the tides.
That's it.
Baltimore court.
And I deleted my account to get away from Twitter and lost all my followers.
That's a bitch.
No, it's not. I like having less followers.
You still, not even close. Let me tell you, you certainly still make an impact.
Because because Kyle likes to torture me.
Listen, man, I'm all for blaming issues on Kyle, but there are some holes that I've seen you dig as well. You have a shovel, and you know how to use it.
Yes, I do.
Was there a hole lately, huh?
Very large ones.
Oh, boy, that was delightful.
All right, well, before we get ourselves into an even deeper pit here, I just want to remind everybody that they can go follow us on this Twitter that we're talking about here. You can follow Bryan Gibberman and just take stock of all of just the pits, the holes, the potholes. Just the man is just uprooting construction all around Twitter, and it's a fabulous thing to follow. Kyle Maggio, if you want to go and follow him on Twitter so you can get at all these Durant tweets and pull him up, get the screenshots going before he wipes 6 years worth of tweets, then I would recommend you go follow him now. As for me, I'm there. You can go follow me. Follow the Knicks Wall. Follow TKW Podcast. Like I said before. Now, why don't we get into what we witnessed against the Raptors on Saturday? Quite a little bit of interesting things throughout this game. Do either of you have any particular area you wanted to start for Saturday's recap against the Raptors?
Yeah, I mean, I watched it today. I missed it last night. I was, trying to keep up with the VAU guys, and so I kind of knew what to look for when I watched it today. But the only thing that, and I've been sort of exclusively trying to focus on Dennis Smith Jr. just because I feel like that's the most worthwhile piece right now with the team. And I like that we knew like a bad shooting game was coming. The game in Detroit, he was 9 of 14, and he went to the line 19 times. So he's never been an overly efficient player, but there's going to be off nights, and that happened to be last night. I think he was 4 of 15 from the field, or 4 of 16, and I mean it just wasn't good, but at least he found ways to make an impact in other facets of the game. I think he had 6 assists, 4 rebounds, I believe 3 steals, it wasn't. I'm not saying he had a good night by any means, but I thought, you have to, against good teams like this, you have to battle through having a bad shooting night. And he's an offense-only guy for the most part. That's what he's known as. And if you can't put the ball in the hoop, you got to find ways to just can't kind of scrap and claw and hang around with Kyle Lowry and the Raptors. So I felt good about that. It looked like Mitch had a really nice game too, career high. Getting a couple more rebounds in that one, and I think he had 3 block shots, and he looked really, really impressive. And I think that's kind of what we hope to see down the stretch, is just Dennis Smith be encouraging and Mitchell Robinson staying on the floor, making an impact like that.
Kyle, on Dennis Smith, to my eye, defensively, his on-ball defense doesn't seem all that bad to me, but he gets a little bit lost off the ball. I don't know what he did in his first year, but the reputation was being like a horrible, atrocious defender. What I've seen with the Knicks so far, it's more around average. Do you think that's fair?
I think it's definitely fair on ball to say he's closer to average. Off ball, he just ball watches a lot. And normally I've noticed it always happens he's more prone to it happening on switches. Like, whatever, like him and Dotson they'll switch, and then he'll kind of glance over at his man, and then he kind of just hovers like he's playing free safety. And you can do that. That's actually something that's very useful for team defense, but you still have to know where your man is. And I've seen it, these guys cut backdoor on him when he's not looking. To me, that's one thing that sticks out to me. But the on ball, I thought, is fine normally because he's pretty quick and he's kind of a strong, body to get in front of somebody. So I don't know if I'm going to feel comfortable saying average yet, but definitely closer to it for on ball at least.
Just his overall game has a lot of like young Eric Bledsoe in it to me.
There's a lot more, and I was talking with Matt Spenley this morning. I don't want to rush to judge it now because I know he's probably excited to be here and have the greenest of lights again. So I'm sure he feels pretty good and confident right now. So I want to judge once we're a month in and everything, but he just does seem better in this present moment than like you were saying, he was kind of given credit for. I don't see he's playing on a really bad team, and he looks pretty okay at both ends, and even with his passing, he might take a lot of shots, but he's definitely working to get guys looks. Even if they're turnovers, he's definitely trying to incorporate his teammates in the flow of the offense too. So I think I like what I'm seeing as a whole right now.
So kind of sticking with the guard rotation, we've seen a couple of weeks out of Kadeem Allen now. He's the Knicks two-way player since Lonzo Trier got converted. I thought that he had a pretty solid defensive game. He looked pretty aware out there and got into a couple of lanes, got himself a few steals. I know, obviously, Kadeem Allen's most likely going to be the odd man out once we see Emmanuel Mudiay and Frank Ntilikina coming back into the come back from injury, but what has Kadeem Allen given you guys to look forward to so far with him in the G League and potentially further call-ups down the line?
Does anyone have his line? Does anyone have the Raptors box score up in front of them and can recite off what his line was in that game? I thought it was really, really good.
Go into it real quick. You got it, Kyle?
I'm pulling it up right now. Okay. So just give me literally one more second and we're here. So Kadeem Allen had 14 points, 6 assists, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, and he shot 5 of 11 from the field. He was 2 for 4 from the line, 2 of 3 from deep, and he had no turnovers. So he played a really clean game. To me, he's just a really nice system fit. Just a guy who can come in like a plug and play. He can do a lot of things okay. And he could just kind of fit in. If you need him to shoot a little bit, he can shoot. If you need him to dish a little bit, he can dish. He's actually a really nice playmaker. So I like the player that he is, and he's actually a pretty good defender too. So, and not just an on-ball guy. I've seen him make a number of off-ball plays and cut into the passing lanes, and he's a pest on-ball. So I'm not going to oversell him too much, but I like what I see.
I like that.
He's definitely it translates well from his G League play to now.
Yeah, his confidence is really apparent out there. He missed his first 4 shots of the game, and then it was able to still turn around. What was he, 5 for 11? You said? Turn on a 5 for 11 game. He scored 14 points. And then not even that, but everything else around it is what also impressed me. So
game.
I think what you're saying is great. He's a really nice systematic fit. I think he is I think he could have a future as a backup point guard. Whether it be with the Knicks down the line or a different team. Like I could definitely see him being an NBA level backup point guard.
I would be more interested in seeing him continue to get minutes and explore what he can do based on his skill set than invest more time in Emmanuel Mudiay. I think we've seen what Mudiay is.
Yes.
He had that one hot stretch, and outside of that, he pretty much regressed back to what he was with maybe a tiny bit better shooting numbers, but he's not going to be a net positive NBA player between what he does on offense and what he does on defense. Allen, when Frank comes back, I would play Frank and I would keep playing Allen, and I wouldn't play Mudiay.
I'm very worried about what happens with the Mudiay situation. I agree with you wholeheartedly with what you're saying. I'm just very worried with how Fizdale approaches it.
That's a fair concern. I think we're all in the same boat on that Fizdale's ego and what his relationship with Mudiay could cloud his judgment there.
Yeah, I just think, and I don't even think it's Moody's fault. I do genuinely believe that he's an improved NBA player this season. I think that's very fair, even given his little slump before he got hurt. I think he has improved as a basketball player and should get an opportunity somewhere else. But when you make a trade to get a guy like Dennis Smith Jr., who's just a better version of Mudiay, for the most part, it's redundant on this team. We have the younger, better model. And he's improved Mudiay, and hats off to him, and I'm happy for him, and I hope he, goes someplace and he can get some minutes, but it's just not. It makes little sense here.
So let's kind of look back a little bit more at the game itself. I thought that the Knicks, for the large parts of the first three quarters, played a sound defensive game. There was one lineup that I liked a lot in the third quarter. That was Knox, DeAndre Jordan, Alonzo Trier, Noah Vonleh, and Kadeem Allen playing together. That was just quick and fast defensively, staying on their man. Forced either a shot clock violation or just a bad shot out of a play. And I'd probably swap in Dotson for Trier if I wanted to make that like a lockdown defensive lineup. But there's definitely some combinations, especially with a guy like Allen we're talking about, and with DeAndre Jordan here now, and even out of Kevin Knox at times, there's definitely some defensive talent on this team. And I think looking more towards what kind of defensive lineups they could put together is going to be really helpful for them long term, especially if they're getting offensively gifted players like Durant or Kyrie in the offseason.
So the thing that's jumped out to me since they've traded for DeAndre Jordan is I got in wind from people who watched the Mavs that he wasn't the player he used to be. But the extent of it is even more extreme.
He might be a better offensive player than he is defensive at this point.
Oh, I don't even think that's up for debate. And I don't think his offense has been particularly good. They try and run way too much of the offense with him making decisions and trying to make passes. That's not what his game should be. And to exemplify this, now granted, look, Mitchell Robinson is playing a lot with bench units, and DeAndre Jordan is playing a lot with starters. That there is some of these numbers fall into that category, as that's part of why it's happening. But in the last four games, in 109 minutes with Jordan on the court, the Knicks are a -50. They have a 91.6 offensive rating and a 114.7 defensive rating. In 61 minutes with Mitchell Robinson on the floor, the Knicks are a -2. A 97.7 offensive rating and a 101.6 defensive rating. And it matches the eye test. I didn't know what the numbers were going to be when I went and looked those up, but going into it, I was like, the team has played terribly when DeAndre Jordan's on the floor. And if you go through the film, his team defense is not good. He sinks back too much. The only thing he's concerned about doing defensively is standing near the rim and grabbing defensive rebounds. He doesn't push up on the pick and roll. He doesn't know how to use his length to cut off passing lanes when defending the pick and roll. He's not playing help defense to cut off drives. He's doing nothing. When he's playing one-on-one defense, he's sinking back too far and letting people just shoot jumpers over him. His team defense in multiple aspects, it's just absolutely atrocious. And he's 30 years old. He has too much athleticism. He has too much length. Like, it's unacceptable to me. I want to know, when you're sitting in film room sessions, like, he's supposed to be a guy that's sitting here teaching Mitch, as we talked about earlier. How is this going? How is the guy who's supposed to be teaching the other guy, yet when the whole team, they sit and watch film, and he's making all these mistakes? How do you go about continuing to give him minutes over the guy who's doing things right and making positive plays and making a positive impact? And there's some crossover there that how this functions in an NBA locker room is fascinating to me, because it's blatantly obvious to anyone who's actually really paying attention to what's happening on the court.
I have a prediction for what's going to happen with DeAndre Jordan. I think the Knicks give him a 1-year deal to, bring him in and make him their starter at center going into next season, because that's very Knicks of them. But also to be the Kevin Durant suitor kind of thing. I think he could be a buyout guy, later on in the year, unless the Knicks end up being good and he sticks around and everything like that. But I am just I think he sees a return to this team after the season if they can get the money right. I think that I agree with you that Mitch should probably be starting. They should probably be looking towards him a little bit more in the future, and maybe he will end up being the starter down the line. But I don't think DeAndre Jordan is going to be off this team for a little while at least.
That's a massive, massive mistake if they re-sign DeAndre Jordan, and that's how you start the process of ruining what could potentially be a very good thing. Wasting that $5 million exception on DeAndre Jordan, taking time away from Mitchell Robinson, and then not using that $5 million on getting a better player that you could fit around Robinson, Durant, and whoever else is here. That's the start of the process of not being able to maximize the 3 years you have of Durant's prime left.
See, my thing with DeAndre Jordan is I feel like he had a decent first quarter too. He was crashing the boards well. He was, had a couple of putbacks, everything like that. He was a good rebounder, and I thought actually his passing looked pretty good in that game. He's able to find cutters, to the basket and hit him with the bounce pass well. Right now, those seem to be his only true strengths. Those 3 putbacks and that that kind of specific pass and the rebounding. But the biggest thing I noticed with him is he seems to be playing well through like one quarter, and then just gets tired and starts relying on instinct, and he's just constantly out of position. And the only thing he's able to really put through is like a Dennis Smith Jr. alley-oop or the occasional rebound or whatever. But yeah, it's I'm seeing also bad fouls when he's trying to get a rebound. I'm just seeing inconsistent effort and being out of position. So I don't know whether he's just like tired and is kind of an older 30, but I could definitely see him being a problem sticking around long term. But I also feel like it's almost inevitable that the Knicks will give him that $5 million exception.
I don't know if it's inevitable. I think it's perhaps likely. I would like to see. Again, I don't think that he's actually bad. I just don't think that he's trying, and that's somehow worse. So I would like to believe that you can sensibly talk to him and be like, look, man, we all know you weren't trying. Can you? And it almost sounds pathetic. But can you actually, we have Kevin Durant. Can you try? Can you just try this year? I feel like at that point he would probably, you would assume, clean up his act a little bit. I don't know. I just don't think he suddenly forgot how to play basketball. He just doesn't seem to care right now, and it's strange. I don't know how much stock I put into it being detrimental, but we'll see what happens, man.
But his mannerisms on the court, on the bench, how he's interacting with teammates, isn't of a guy who's not trying. And that Mavs team was also successful early in the season when he was on it, and the type of things that I'm talking about that were happening were being talked about in that Maverick section of Twitter that watches all the games. And even going back to his Clipper days, there was a lot of noise that he wasn't as good defensively as his reputation suggested and he was more about just grabbing rebounds.
It's funny you mention that, because when I looked up like whether or not he had won a Defensive Player of the Year, which I was so sure that he did, pretty much every article I'd seen was like, this is why DeAndre Jordan doesn't deserve to be in the conversation, and and it seems to be a lot of times he's finishing somewhere like fourth in the rankings. It seems like he had a stellar period of time with his defense, and really has relied on that to carry his reputation forward. Is there anything else you guys wanted to get into in this Raptors game, or you want to take a look at what the Knicks have coming up for them?
I'm starting to get worried about Knox with the shooting. I thought he was okay as a whole, but I just didn't like I think he was 7 of 21. I mean, that's a lot of misses.
Yeah. And it was 4 of 9 from 3. So what was that from 2?
Just gross. Just gross.
What's 9 in the 12? So 2 of 12 from 2?
Yeah. Can't hit. Yeah. I mean, he had that moment where he came on a little bit more. I think it was in the later on in the third. He was able to hit a shot or two, and that's what I was talking about earlier in the show, where it's just like, once he's hitting a shot, it affects everyone around him. It just affects how people are moving and how fast they're playing and everything. But when he's not, it takes away a big piece of what the Knicks have working for them right now. But anyway, so I'm hoping that he can pull it back together a little bit. Hopefully, get a shot back. We could use a good game from Knox. The Knicks are next going to be in Cleveland on the 11th, Monday the 11th. That is obviously going to be a win for whoever loses that game, as far as trying to get to the bottom of the standings and everything. Cleveland is currently, what's their record looking like?
I think they're a game behind us.
Yeah, I think they have one more win than we do. Sorry, everybody. Filibustering.
I want the Knicks to win the game. I don't care.
I mean, this is the one game coming up that I kind of really just want them to lose.
I don't give a shit. Go win let me watch the Knicks win a fucking basketball game.
So they're
please.
11-45. We're 10-45. Look, this is probably the most winnable game they're going to have in a long time. At the same time, it's look. I'm a pretty big proponent right now of the Knicks can go out and get a couple of wins, and it's not going to be too big of an impact on them. This seems like one of those games where if they'll go out and get a win, and it'll come back and bite them on the ass when the draft comes around.
They've lost 16 games in a row, man. Go win a fucking game, please.
But at the same time, I'm just like, what's one more at this point?
4-22 at home. Like, dear God, oh my God.
The last time
they're on the road, so that's probably going to be
December
worse.
1st, right? They still haven't won. The last time they won at home was December 1st.
The last time they won at home, it was the Hazonia step back game. We talked about this last time.
Yes, 2 entire months it's been.
Yeah.
The Suns have lost 14 in a row. The Knicks have lost 16 in a row.
Yeah, it's hard to say whose shoes you would rather be in right now. Man, at least the Suns have Ayton already on their team. After that, on Wednesday, the Knicks will play. Wednesday the 13th, the Knicks will be playing the Philadelphia 76ers. I am petrified of this game. The Sixers just scored 145 points. I saw that, right?
Yeah, there's
143 points against the Lakers.
They absolutely decimated the Lakers. And the worst part is, and I'm gonna just telling you guys now, Tobias Harris on Kevin Knox, if that happens at even Jimmy Butler on Kevin Knox is just gonna be.
It's going to be
brutal.
hard. It's going to be tough.
They are just going to bully this kid.
We need Knox to get a good game, I think, in Cleveland. At least have a good scoring game, good shooting game, because he needs some momentum to carry into a game like this.
The thing that gets me with Philly is that they move the ball really well for all those guys. Like, the ball was humming around today, and they're all bruisers, too. Like, Jimmy is a bruiser. Tobias will back you in and bully you in a little bit, and Embiid will do the same. Simmons is going to come right down the paint on you. Like, these are bruisers, and they're just moving the ball really well with each other. Like, that's terrifying. Like, watching them today was terrible. It was a lot of fun, to be honest with you. It was a lot of fun, but they were terrifying.
33 assists on 56 shots, and not one player had more than 7 on 56 makes, and not one player had more than 7 assists. That ball had to be. I didn't get to see any of it. But I saw a highlight of one play, and watching it, I was like, whoa, that was like Spurs back in the day type ball movement in the play that I saw come across Twitter. The Sixers, I think, are probably the favorites in the East right now after adding Harris.
I mean, the firepower they have, yeah. I don't know if it's if Milwaukee has more just cohesion amongst them and can pull off, they seem to have a system that works a little bit better for what they're trying to do. But as far as just pure firepower, and it's pretty evidenced by that 143 they scored. Philly is definitely the most stacked team in the East right now. I mean, look at these lines. First of all, you have Ben Simmons, who only scored 8 points, had 3 rebounds and 7 assists. But then you have Jimmy Butler with 15, 4, and 3. Tobias Harris with 22, 6, and 6. Joel Embiid 37, 14, and 3. JJ Redick with 21, 2, and 5. You have TJ McConnell scoring a double digits. Boban's in double digits here. It's unbelievable how much they could throw at a team, and just like even if someone like Ben Simmons isn't scoring, or even if their bench isn't doing much at all, like they still have so much they could just throw up against you. And what do you do?
And Mike Scott coming off the bench, he's basically their new Ersan Ilyasova, who can come in and just space the court and bang threes.
It's truly, truly incredible. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to the Cleveland game. I'm not going to be mad if they get a win. It's probably not great if they do, but whatever. I'll be stoked about it just for the sake of breaking this horrid streak. We are now going to take you to Mike Cortez will join us on the show. He is our resident draft guy at the Knicks Wall. He, a couple of weeks ago, published his piece on the 2019 draft board, outlining his top 5 other guys who could move into the mix. He is about to have his second piece come on, and we're excited to talk to him about everything as the Knicks gear up and get ready for the NBA draft. We are joined now by our good friend from the Knicks Wall, Mike Cortez. What's going on, my dude?
Thanks, man. I feel like this is long overdue.
Yeah, it totally is, man. Well, it's especially overdue because you're now on. You're soon to be on edition 2 of your 2019 draft board for the Knicks Wall, correct?
Yep, it should be Tuesday.
All right, yeah. So, as I'm taking a look through, number 1. It's pretty obvious looking at the first people contestants. You got Zion Williamson at the top. You got Ja Morant right underneath him. RJ Barrett. So all the big names are definitely rising to the top. Looking at edition 2 now, and this the first edition was released back on January 29th. So looking at edition 2, has anybody really changed where they stand in the top 3?
Yeah, Ja. I shot Ja all the way down. And I'll talk to him in a second, but I think we're getting to the point where if the Knicks are going to get in trouble for tampering or doing anything, it's to get Zion, because he just unlocks everything. He protects them from striking out in free agency, I think. And he's everything they need right now. He's a playmaker. You put him and Mitchell Robinson. I mean, did you guys see the swat he had last night? It was it was crazy.
He was on the block and took one step and then left
and
got all the way to the corner. And oh my God, man! I tweeted it from the TKW account, but I was just like, imagine that kind of defending at your 4 and having that next to Mitchell Robinson, who does the exact same thing and is just slightly longer. That would be terrifying.
Yeah, another thing with him, I think he just him, Mitchell Robinson, and then let's say Durant comes without getting Davis, you're still versatile enough to defend against the threes with those closeouts, and you're also good enough to take on a team like the Bucks or 76ers who might try and destroy you down low. So I think he covers all bases.
So, you said that you moved Ja down a little bit, though?
Yeah, like for Ja, I can't really see them taking him with Dennis Smith and the possibility of Kyrie coming. That's why I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think if the Knicks were to fall to 3? Because I think they should go for Zion or RJ right now if they get 1 or 2. But if they fall to 3, would you dangle Ja to like the Wizards or maybe the Bulls?
It's interesting. I feel because I think judging based off of like the moves that we saw Scott Perry and Steve Mills make recently, like trading out of valuable assets to get a little bit more down the line seems to be within their wheelhouse. So I do wonder, if they get the number 1 or 2 pick, I'd say they probably draft and most likely hang on to that player, barring anything like an Anthony Davis trade or something. But if they move to number 3, I would not be surprised at all if they try to take Ja Morant and move him to somebody else.
If they get Durant outside of Zion, I'm automatically pretty much trading the pick for a more win-now player. He's 30 years old, and you're trying to maximize his window. I'm trying to win over the next 3 to 5 years, and I'm not waiting for guys to get good. Beal would be my top target if the AD thing.
I would say so as well.
And there's other guys. I mean, this stands for Knox, too. I mean, there's just most likely you're not going to be waiting around for these guys to be good if KD comes. And then if KD and Kyrie comes, I'm even trading Zion for AD if I can.
Oh, definitely.
So like while before we even look at before we look at Knox and all the other auxiliary players who might or pieces that might be added to a trade for moving out of that 3rd pick, what kind of if they do go with Ja or maybe just the 3rd pick on its own, Mike, what kind of value would you say that would hold for them? What kind of return do you think the Knicks could get back for something like that?
I would hope you could, like I said, I think I would package it with a younger player. But like with the Bulls, you might be able to, because they're stupid enough, you might be able to steal maybe a Lowry, maybe. If it depends on how much they really love Ja. But I would probably stick with the pick at that point and then take Reddish, just because he adds shooting and defensive. Like he averages 2.1 steals and he has a pretty big wingspan. So I think he could still end up being like Knox on offense, where he's just like falls to the side and just doesn't really engage. But I do think he has a much more defensive potential.
So another name that I am seeing on your first draft board is Romeo Langford, who is definitely not, I would say, a name that most household Knicks most Knicks fans know as a household name, and even fewer people who are casual Knicks fans or anything like that. So you had him as your 4th top prospect in the 1st edition, is that right, or the 3rd?
Yeah, he was 4th. It was before Dennis Smith got there. That's when no one was really getting to the rim. And I feel like Dennis Smith does that. I mean, it's always good to have more. Like, I still have him pretty high on the board, but I also have Jared Culver now. And I think they need scoring at this point because Knox just isn't that top guy. And until Durant's here, he's not here. So outside of Dennis Smith, who's really getting you buckets consistently? And I think Culver and Langford could get to the rim. I think Langford's leading the nation at the rim, if I'm not mistaken.
So, is basically his game, because I haven't seen any of his play at all, but he's a little bit more in the Dennis Smith model. He's going to be the kind of guy who's going to be doing a lot of cutting, a lot of trying to get to the rim.
Yeah, yes and no. He's not, flat. Like, Dennis Smith is way more athletic, but Romeo Langford is, Kyrie-ish at the rim, where he has very soft touch. And I think I caught him on a good streak of games because the first game I saw from him was Maryland, and he was just awesome. So that played a big factor in me just falling in love with him right off the bat. But I still think he holds value as a second guard, as second unit. So, but not somebody you really want to that moves the needle that much.
Well,
Gotcha.
Taking a look at just the rest of your top 5 was in your 1st edition was Zion, obviously at number 1, and then you had Ja Morant, and then it was RJ Barrett, Romeo Langford, and then at number 5 was Cam Reddish. And Cam Reddish is interesting because I would say he's probably the guy who was number 2 in everybody's minds coming into this season. Seeing him at number 5 on your board was kind of surprising, but how has he looked since you wrote this piece? How has he looked overall this year? What can you tell people about him?
Well, he was ice cold when I was writing the first edition. He was shooting 25% from three, I think 28% from the field. But since then, I think St. John's game really got him going from deep. Since then he's shooting 44% from three, and he's starting to look more like the guy that we were looking at during the Kentucky game or even before the season. And that, and mixed with the Dennis Smith being there, I still think their best bet is to add wing depth. So I think that's where he saw his biggest improvement.
I'm just curious, like, it seems like, yeah, you have Cam Reddish here as a wing. You have, so far on your first board, it's been a lot of varying positions, overall on the team. And this is obviously before the Porzingis trade when you first wrote this, and this is, before the trade deadline and everything. Now that we have a clearer look at who's going to be here for the rest of the year and who the Knicks could potentially re-sign once it comes to free agency, like, what do you think is the most valuable position for them? How does this change your rankings? Like, are there anybody in the top five who you would say straight up just the Knicks should not look at anymore, or does everyone still have value for them?
I think it's still best player available, just to keep you versatile to any possible scenario the summer may hold, because this summer could go really good or really bad. So you kind of just want to limit the downside. So above all, I think you just want someone that could score and is not going to be a liability on the floor. And I think the top five still has that. But I have DeAndre Hunter on this new board. That's like if we start to win games and somehow drop outside of the top five, then you're starting to look at like utility guys who are just going to help versus take us up the next level.
And you mentioned DeAndre Hunter, but in your first draft board, you also had Jarrett Culver, you had Nasir Little, and you had Kevin Porter Jr. as being the other names to keep tabs on. Now that we're about to have a look at the second round of your draft board, have any other of those guys popped up there other than DeAndre Hunter, or has anybody fallen a little bit deeper from that list?
No, Nasir Little's still a name to keep tabs on, but he just does. I don't think he plays enough to get a good look at it. Maybe as the tournament gets closer, Roy Williams will play him more, and we'll get to see who he is. But I still think he could be a good defender and an athletic wing. But Culver jumped into the board, and him and Langford are now neck and neck. And then I have Ja, like I said, at the very end of the board.
All right. Well, I'm not going to have you spoil the entire piece on air here, but I am going to tell everybody that you were saying either Tuesday or Wednesday we're looking towards on that?
Yeah, most likely Tuesday.
All right. So keep an eye out on the KnicksWall.com. Keep an eye on the Knicks Twitter. Or the Knicks Wall's Twitter account for when that piece comes live. We'll have it all over for you guys. Make sure you follow Mike on Twitter as well at Cortez Era. Mike, it's been a pleasure. We can't wait to have you back on to talk about the next edition.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Well, that was Mike Cortez joining us to talk about his draft board. Make sure you're following him. Follow all the rest of us, at Kyle Maggio, at Corbo Anthony, at Bryan Gibberman. Follow the Knicks Wall, follow TKW Podcast. Please, please, please subscribe on podcast platforms and on YouTube. Leave us your reviews, your comments, all that good stuff. And we will talk to you all later on this week.